Good morning, everyone. We'll just give it a minute for everyone to join, and then we will get started with this morning's training. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning again. Happy Friday. And thank you for joining us today for Domestic Violence 101 in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We are thrilled to have Kayla Machado from the Women's Center in New Bedford here to present this training. My name is Charlotte Hoff. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Communications and Training Specialist here at MOVA. I'm just going to go over some logistics quickly before passing it over to our presenter. First of all, this is a Zoom webinar, so you cannot be seen or heard as audience members, but you can see the presenters, ASL interpreters, and presentation. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function to ask them. Questions will be held and answered at the end of the presentation. We do have ASL interpretation and cart captioning available during today's session. To see the closed captions, go to the bottom of the screen, click on the up arrow next to closed caption, and choose Show Subtitle. If you are having trouble seeing the ASL interpreters or closed captions or have any other tech issues today, please use the chat function to message all panelists and we will happily assist you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today. Kayla Machado is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at the Women's Center. She oversees workshops, trainings, and initiatives to raise awareness for domestic violence and sexual assault. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kayla. I'll now pass it over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte, and good morning. And to reiterate, happy Friday to everybody as well. Thank you, MOVA, for having me today. And today we'll be discussing domestic violence, intimate partner violence, the effects of those, and the different aspects of both. So we're just going to jump right into it. If you're not familiar with the Women's Center, we are the local agency for domestic violence and sexual assault. The definition of domestic violence is a pattern of coercive behavior in an intimate relationship whereby the behavior of another person is controlled through humiliation, intimidation, fear, and often intentional physical, emotional, or sexual injury. On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner within the United States. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. So the thing about domestic violence is it might occur between husband and wife, parent and child, caregiver and elder, unmarried and same-sex partners, roommates, individuals with a child in common. And domestic violence is always about power and control. So when we hear the word domestic violence, a lot of the times people still relate that to physical violence between husband and wife. But we know that it is more than that, and there are different aspects of it other than just physical. And we're going to talk about those today. Intimate partner violence is another term that you'll start hearing, and that's the term that's going to help get us away from that idea of just physical violence between married couples. Intimate partner violence is abuse or aggression that occurs in a romantic relationship. Intimate partner refers to both current and former spouses and dating partners. Intimate partner violence can vary in how often it happens and how severe it is. So with the term intimate partner violence, it gets us away from the shared household. People can be in a relationship who are living in two different apartments, houses, whatever the case might be, and still be victims of abuse, whether the abuse be physical, financial, verbal, emotional, and we're going to get into all of those as well later on. It can occur regardless of whether individuals are involved or whether or not they're living together. That's what takes the distinction of intimate partner violence from domestic violence. So it helps us capture everybody all together under that umbrella. I kind of already went over this, but just to reiterate, intimate partner violence has assisted us in moving away from that old view that violence can only occur between marital relationships, where the husband was always the physical abuser and the wife was always the victim. The concept of intimate partner violence acknowledges that abuse can exist in any personal, intimate relationship, regardless of their sexual orientation, marital status, or gender. It covers all aspects of violence within that relationship outside of a shared living space, and covers all aspects of violence within that relationship. These are just some statistics nationally versus statewide as well. So we see nationally 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes. Women ages 18 to 24 are most commonly abused by an intimate partner. With that one being said, 18 to 24 is around college age. A lot of those victims are being emotionally abused and don't know it. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. Now looking at the Massachusetts statistics, on one day in 2019, 1,857 adults and children survivors were served by Massachusetts domestic violence programs. It's a great number. However, another 441 requests of services went unmet due to the lack of resources. So 441 individuals were unable to get the resources that they needed for the lack thereof. So we still have some work to do. In 2008, domestic violence was declared a public health emergency in Massachusetts. Now, why is she reading me a statistic from 2008? We're in 2023. Well, because in 2015, after that notion, and there were 30,000 active protective orders in the National Crime Information Center for Massachusetts, and that went down from the high of approximately 55,000 in 2011. So from declaring domestic violence as a public health emergency, we did see the numbers decline. However, those numbers still remain pretty high, arguably. Now we're going to get into the different types, and what you see here are the different types of domestic violence and the power and control wheel. So we see that there's physical, financial, emotional, verbal, and psychological types of abuse. So again, it does not only have to be physical. What you see in the middle is the power and control, because we know that domestic violence is always about power and control. It is not about anger. It is not about anything other than power and control. Every different spoke you see here is a different tactic that an abuser might use to maintain that power and control over their victim. We see using children. So maybe there's a couple who have children in common and they're making them feel guilty about the children, using them to relay messages, threatening to take those children away from them. Maybe it's financial and you need and depend on your abuser to survive for not only you, but the children you guys have in common. Intimidation, making somebody afraid by using looks, gestures, destroying somebody's property, and abusing pets. In Massachusetts, you can get a restraining order for a pet. We've seen a lot of abusers, instead of physically assaulting the victim, physically assaulting their pet, their cat, their dog, whatever you might have. Isolation. We are coming out of a pandemic still. I know it seems like so long ago, but we did recently just come out of a pandemic where everybody was working remotely, kids were not going to school. Isolation in that time period skyrocketed. They use jealousy to justify actions. They don't want to see you hang out with anybody else. They don't want you to have any close family or friends. They don't want you to have any of your own passions. They don't want you to go and play a sport. They don't want you to pick anything up outside of themselves. And they want you to physically and only depend on them. That way, it's easier for them to control you. And if you come to the realization that you may be in an unsafe situation, you don't really have anybody to turn to, nor do you have anybody to say, hey, I don't think this is right. This is something you should probably revisit, and maybe we should try and get you some help. If you don't have anybody close to you and around you because they've successfully isolated you, there's little help. Denying, minimizing, and blaming. We see this a lot with gaslighting, saying that the abuse didn't really happen, acting like nothing happened, shifting the responsibility, not taking somebody's concern seriously, and making light of the abuse. So pretending and believing their own lies, really. Maybe somebody has a black eye, and the next morning the victim wakes up with a black eye and says, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe you hit me. And the abuser goes, oh no, that's not what happened at all. Are you okay? Are you remembering things incorrectly? Should we take you to the hospital? Maybe you're concussed. They're really believable. So the victim starts to say, maybe that is really what happened. They seem really concerned about me. Maybe I am remembering the situation wrong. Maybe I did really walk into that door. And that's how it starts. And then you start to believe your own instinct less and less. Using emotional abuse, so name calling, playing that mind game, humiliating somebody and putting them down in front of others. And then economic abuse. I do find that economic abuse is less widely known. So those who are being financially and or economically abused are not having the correct access to money and maybe other financial barriers, controlling the money over them. Maybe they don't want you to go to work, so you don't have your own money, so that you have to depend on your abuser. Maybe you are the breadwinner, but they're in control of your money and they're limiting your access. Verbal and emotional kind of go hand in hand, but however, that can get tricky where sometimes the abuser is using more emotional abuse rather than verbal, because verbal is more upfront. You can tell when somebody's verbally abusing you. It's the name calling, it's the getting aggressive with the words, it's making you feel uncomfortable with what they're saying to you. And emotional is that gaslighting, underlying, making you second guess yourself, telling you, you're so lucky that I love you because nobody else is going to love you. You're so lucky I put up with you because nobody else would. So if they're not using that verbal, it's hard to distinct that emotional. Then we have the cycle of abuse. So with the cycle of abuse, we see this happen over a number of different time frames. It can happen in 6 months, 9 months, a year, 3 months, a week, and it interchanges with every relationship. Obviously, we start with the honeymoon phase. You have just started dating, everything's great, you're nice and warm and fuzzy, you love each other. There's love bombing. So it's the I love you so much, and where are you, and when can I see you, and everything feels great. They're buying you gifts, they're making you promises. Then we start with the tension building stage, and that necessarily doesn't have to get physical, but you feel like you're walking on eggshells. There's arguing, there's intimidation, there's blaming, there's threats, and maybe it's the silent treatment. And then there's that violent episode. So that can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be verbal, and it can also be emotional. And that's when that uncomfortable argument or abrupt issue explodes and happens, and then we cycle back to the honeymoon phase. So we see the abuser come back with a gift and apologies again. And I'm sorry, I just love you so much. You just made me so angry. I didn't want to see you talking to that person. It'll never happen again. And then again and again, this cycle continues. So this is how we see some people get into those cycles and stay in them, because they have that idea of that person in that honeymoon phase. They've seen them be great. They love them and that idea of them. When it's good, but when it's bad, it's bad. So that's what I mean when we see it happen in weeks, days, months. It can interchange in every single relationship, in every single situation. Red flags. So we're going to talk about what kind of red flags there are, and that they're signs that maybe somebody can't really maintain a healthy relationship. They're abusive, maybe. This is just the normal for them. And red flags help you in the long run set up more boundaries for yourself. If you or a friend experience behaviors from a partner, remember, it's not your fault, and there are advocates waiting to help. Some red flags may include, but are not limited to, they want you all to themselves. They insist that you stop spending time with your friends and family. So that's where you see that isolation coming into play. They insist that you stop participating in any hobbies or activities. They don't want you to go to school, and they want you to quit your job. They don't honor your boundaries. We're going to talk about boundaries and what those consist of and how to build those as well. And they're excessively jealous or accuse you of being unfaithful. If somebody's accusing you of being unfaithful, even though you're not giving them any reason to, it's a red flag to see what's going on behind the scenes and what they're doing and why they think that you might be doing that back to them. Some red flags are red flags to you and nobody else. Everybody's red flags are different, but there are those universal red flags, like isolating you and intimidating you. Some examples: they want to know where you are all the time. They're frequently calling you, emailing you, or texting you throughout the day. We see that getting worse and worse with being able to share locations, criticizing you, putting you down, telling you that you're crazy or you're stupid, and that nobody else will love you or ever want you. And they take no responsibility for their behavior, and they always blame somebody else. Going back to the sharing of locations, we're seeing that with obviously younger generations, but it's pretty dangerous. And then it gets to the point where not only is it dangerous, it's psychologically taking a toll on people, where they can see where you're at physically, but they want further proof. Send me a picture of you holding up a fork so that I know you're really there. Things of that nature. We've seen it. And now going into boundaries. Your boundary is a rule that you say cannot be broken without consequence. A boundary is about you. It can be physical and it can be emotional. If you see that you've set up boundaries and this person is getting angry with you, that's because that's a red flag. They're getting angry that you are restricting their access to you. With boundaries, you can see and recognize abuse when it happens. After just setting one boundary, you'll start to realize all of the red flags as they occur. Maybe somebody is blowing up your phone. If somebody harasses me by phone, I will send their call straight to voicemail or block them if it continues. So you've already told them, I'm in a meeting, I'm busy, I cannot respond, I will be busy from this time to that time, but they continue to blow up your phone. Respect your boundary by actually following through and blocking them or turning your phone off, limiting that access. So that way they can understand that you are serious about this. Maybe you're not busy, but you just want time to yourself to decompress and you don't want to talk to anybody. And they're still following through and blowing up your phone. Again, block them. Put your phone on do not disturb. Following through and making sure that they cannot break that boundary is showing them that you are serious about that. Disclosure. If somebody you know or love has just disclosed to you in confidence that they're experiencing either intimate partner violence or domestic violence, you want to be prepared on how to act. Our human instinct is to react negatively towards the abuser, obviously, speaking ill of that person, bad mouthing them, but you should refrain, because really, if that's your first reaction and that's what you're telling this victim, they might shut down and they might not disclose to you any further, and you've just taken away the only person they felt comfortable opening up to. Why? Because they still have that image of them. This is a complex situation. They might still have emotions and feelings for this individual, regardless of the situation. So attacking that person to them is just going to shut them down. They don't want to hear those negative terms and thoughts just yet. What they do want to hear is, this is not your fault. You did not ask for this. How can I help you going forward? What do you need and what do you want? Also, going forward, don't bring the situation up to them. Let them always bring it up to you. I know that you're eager to help and know if they're safe and what's going on, but you never know where they are, what situation they're in, what kind of headspace they're in, and you don't want to get them in further trouble with their abuser. God forbid you call them up and just start discussing this with them in front of their abuser. Be mindful of your response and be patient with them. Again, don't bring up any sensitive information or questions without them bringing it up first. You also want to make sure that you give them an actual resource. So they can be Googling resources on their own. Maybe they have Googled resources and the Women's Center has popped up. However, they don't know anything about the Women's Center. They don't know anybody there. They don't know how this works. They're very unlikely to call on their own. If you give them the resource and you do a soft referral for them, listen, I learned this about the Women's Center. I spoke to these people at the Women's Center. Kayla came in and gave me a presentation about the Women's Center. They're more likely to actually call because it's that soft referral. They know somebody who knows somebody. It's 10 times statistically proven that they're more likely to follow through with that resource and actually gain the help that they can. Now, why do they stay? This question, everybody asks it. Why would you stay with that person? You were being abused. This wasn't healthy. You had all the resources to get out. You would never ask a victim of a bank robbery why they were robbed. So why would you ask a victim why they would stay in this relationship? Victims of domestic violence, it takes them 7 to 9 tries to actively leave their abuser. And within that 7th to 9th try, they are most likely at danger to be killed. So there are a number of different reasons why an individual might not leave their abuser. And here's just a small list of a few possible different reasons. They're financially dependent of their abuser. Maybe they're a mother and they have 3 children and they have no job and they have nowhere to go because they've been isolated and they can't leave and they don't know how they would supply for themselves, let alone their children. Therefore, they feel like they have no choice but to stay with their abuser. They have their children with their abuser. Maybe that's as simple as it is. They have a family together and they do not want to leave because they think that that is what they need to do. They are married, they need to stay in this marriage, and they have to put on the show for their children because they love them and they remember them from that honeymoon phase. So they've seen them in that great light. They've seen them be different. And like I said in the beginning, when it's good, it's really good. And so they have that, they're holding on to that, they are grasping onto that. They've been isolated from everybody that they were once close with, and they have nowhere to turn to. They don't have somebody to say, hey, listen, you can come stay with me, or hey, listen, this is what we're going to do to get you help. And again, so that fear of retaliation, a majority of DV homicides occur as that victim is attempting to leave or after they've already left. Now, remembering that domestic violence and intimate partner violence is all about power and control. So once that victim is trying to leave and have taken all of that power and control away from their abuser, they are doing everything and anything they can to maintain it and take it back. So that is why, if it means it's going to end in death, the abuser doesn't care. That is the ultimate power over them. Safety planning. So we know that each individual relationship is different and everybody's situation at hand is different. And it's important to have a safety plan in place. So we're going to do risk assessments. They should be evaluated. How high are the levels of immediate danger? Is it safer for you to stay where you are and work on a plan long-term on how to get you out of here, or do you need to leave immediately? We're looking at the escalation and where you're at. Having a plan in place, such as a bag packed and a place to store that bag with the sensitive information that is considered safe. So maybe you have a go bag that's maintaining your ID, your passport, your cash that you've saved up, your birth certificates, your social security card, any important information and documentation that you would need on your persons. Maybe it's not safe to have it in your own home because you're afraid of your abuser finding that. Maybe you have a friend or a family member who's able to store that information for you safely, and you're able to access that no matter what time of day it is. Having a phone that your abuser does not have access to, because a lot of the times families are on shared plans. Abusers can still check your phone, being able to have maybe a burner phone hidden somewhere so that you can use it to make that call, things of that nature. So being able to have that phone in place, grab the bag and stay with somebody, that's your plan. Or maybe you're working with us and we're helping you create a safety plan in which you have that bag, you have everything you need, and we're going to help you get out of the state. We're going to help you move somewhere without them knowing or being able to trace you. Now, housing is a tough topic. There's only about 256 beds in the state of Massachusetts dedicated to domestic violence victims. Now, we, the Women's Center, own and operate 3 shelters, 2 in New Bedford, 1 in Fall River. They're all confidential addresses that are not to be given out to anybody, obviously for safety reasons, and they are full a lot of the time. When somebody calls and they're looking for shelter, we recommend that they continue to call. Same thing with SafeLink, and we give them SafeLink's information as well. Now, sometimes the victim doesn't want to move from the area, and that's entirely their choice. It's all about empowering them and giving them the choice back, not taking it from them. So regardless of whether or not their abuser is living in the same city, state, town, whatever the case might be, and they choose to stay, that is entirely their choice. If they are willing and want to give up their lives where they have grown up, where they have made a life for themselves and move across the country, that is also their choice. They shouldn't have to make that choice, but there it is. And we want to be able to give them choices. We're not taking power away from them. We're giving it back to them. So if they're willing to wait and find a location in the immediate area, that's great. If not, we will also help you find a different location outside of the immediate area. SafeLink is also a resource that we provide if they're calling and looking for shelter within the state of Massachusetts, and we are currently full and do not have the room for them. It's a direct connection to domestic violence programs across the state of Massachusetts. So if you or somebody you know is in need of shelter, they can contact SafeLink for a space available, like I said, throughout that state of Massachusetts, and the number is located below. It's 877-785-2020. And I do believe SafeLink does recommend calling hourly as well to see if any location has a spot that has opened up and become available. Now, getting into the effects of domestic violence. Some short-term examples of some short-term effects of and examples of that adults can take on might just be bruising, cuts, and broken bones. Those are the physical effects that you can see. Minor injuries sustained from the violence, muscle tension, involuntary shaking, excuse me, shortness or loss of breath. So going back to there being more than just physical abuse, sometimes victims are in domestic violence situations and intimate partner violence situations where there is no physical abuse. So they're not really sure that this is abuse, but we know that there's more than just physical abuse. And those can take on lives of their own. You can see that muscle tension because you're carrying that stress differently. The involuntary shaking because you're constantly on edge. That shortness or loss of breath because you're anxious and you're on edge. The emotional effects such as shock, confusion, changes in your eating habits and sleeping patterns, and that confusion and mistrust of your own instincts. They have twisted and manipulated you so many times that you're unable to know what you're trying to tell yourself. You don't trust your own instincts because you're believing the lies that are being fed to you by your abuser. Long-term effects of domestic violence. So that mental health effects of domestic violence are likely to be severe and long-lasting. Exposure to violence and abuse increases one's risk of experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, substance use, and suicidal behaviors. The most commonly employed element of domestic violence, coercive control, is a pattern of domination enacted through tactics designed for intimidation and entrapment, and has a particularly damaging effect on mental health. So we see long-term victims are experiencing more issues of mental health. Practitioners are also seeing the use of digital coercive control, whereby perpetrators utilize technology to monitor and track their victims, creating that sense of omnipresence, isolation, and ostracism. So circling back to the use of technology. Technology is great, right? It can get you places that you need to get. It can get you things without you even leaving the house. However, it's setting up boundaries and barriers, and people can be stalked 10 times more with the use of technology. We see not only the sharing of locations, but sometimes people are using the what are those called? The Apple AirTags, where somebody can throw that in your purse or in your car or whatever you might be traveling with. And as far as I'm aware, you wouldn't be notify that that tracking device is with your persons until about 45 minutes afterwards at least. FaceTime also, people are on FaceTime 24/7. Unsafe makes parents specifically feel uncomfortable in their own homes when their children are constantly on FaceTime with another individual. They're never really alone in their own house. God forbid they say something to their child, not even maliciously, but there's always somebody on the other line to interpret what the parent is saying. And a lot of these children, young children who have access to this technology, are being exposed and having this constant falling asleep with each other on FaceTime. And that's just starting to build them up for future unhealthy relationships because this is their norm and what they're used to. So that omniscience, that isolation and that ostracism, where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? When am I going to see you? I don't believe you. Send me a picture. You're seeing that more and more. So some long-term physical effects, we see the gastrointestinal, digestive issues, chronic pain, reproductive issues, symptoms of pulmonary or musculoskeletal conditions, traumatic brain injuries, cardiovascular issues. And as we know, domestic abuse can also result in death. So again, some of these not even having to have anything to do with physical abuse, but they've been enduring the emotional abuse long term, and that transmutes into physical pain and physical effects. We see psychological effects. So 20% of survivors develop mental health conditions, and these include but are not limited to major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorder. A lot of the times, PTSD takes on that form where people are jumping at any slight little noise because they've been triggered because they are so used to the abuse. Generalized anxiety, I shouldn't be here. This isn't where I should be because I told them that I was going to be home at this time. And that can just cycle on even outside of the relationship. If the relationship has ended, they can just carry this on with them. Substance use, they're trying to minimize that pain any which way that they can. And that becomes a problem long term. Incarcerated victims. So of women in prison, 86% identify as survivors of sexual violence. 77% identify as survivors of intimate partner violence, and between 60 to 70% experienced physical or sexual violence in their childhood. A majority of women and transgender people in prisons and jails are survivors of sexual assault and or domestic violence. Women who are violent offenders are often more likely to have been abused and to be incarcerated for responding to that abuse violently. About 54% of girls incarcerated in the United States juvenile system correctional settings have been sexually abused, and 61% have been physically abused, and the majority of those girls have been abused multiple times. All of these statistics to read off to you to say most of those victims, most of those abusers that are in jail are victims, and that is potentially and most likely what landed them in jail because they were responding to that abuse. They were victims over and over again, and they finally defended themselves, and now they are here as a violent offender. Maybe they were a victim for so long, and then they became the abuser themselves because they could no longer tolerate the abuse. Like these statistics show, they are survivors of that domestic violence and that sexual assault, so they are pursuing ways to get out of it and end that trauma for themselves. And then they have landed themselves in jail. This is a disclosure cheat code going forward. We kind of covered this already, but just to reiterate, if somebody that you know confides in you that they are experiencing domestic violence, there are different things that you can keep in mind to help them. You want to make sure that you believe them. You do not want to bash the abuser. This is what might cause them to stop disclosing to you and take away that one person that they have tried to disclose to, the one person they felt comfortable to disclose to, and giving them that actual resource. So we have these new pamphlets that have come in. They have English, Portuguese, and Spanish all in one, and it has all of our information on them, giving them that actual resource. I know somebody here, I know somebody who's used this place. I have spoken with individuals from this location. They are here to help you. Here is what they have to offer. We also have little individual pens. I'm not sure how blurry that is, but pens, chapsticks, different materials that have our information on them that are less conspicuous than a flyer, than a brochure. There are also different locations throughout the surrounding communities that have our tear offs. So a piece of paper that's in the bathroom. A bathroom might be the only place a victim has time alone to themselves, even if they're at a doctor's office. And that paper, again, has English, Spanish, and Portuguese information on what it is that the Women's Center does and how we're able to help them. And they can just take the number off the bottom in private, and it's teeny tiny little piece of paper. They're less likely to get caught with and are able to call when they have that time and space away from their abuser. Make sure that they know that there are no way at fault for what happened to them, and acknowledge that complexity of the issue. Again, recognizing that they might still have emotional feelings and attachments to this individual. That's more than just being able to pick up and leave. Why don't you just break up with them? Well, because there's a plethora of different reasons. I love them still. I'm not sure how I feel about them. I have been with them for so long. I don't know how to live without them. I've been isolated from all of my friends and family. Again, there's a plethora of different reasons why somebody might still be with their abuser. And this is how to make a referral. So we have our main line that is 508-996-3343. And that line is available 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. With that being said, we have an amazing intake department in which you'll get 3 individuals. The language capacity is there for English, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, and Spanish. And our intakes take about 10 to 15 minutes. You can call our 24-hour hotline as well outside of those hours, which is 508-999-6636. And there's always an advocate on the other end to answer that phone as well. So you'll never catch a mailbox. You might catch a mailbox if our receptionist is maybe on the other line with somebody. However, leave a voice message and we will call you back. Let us know whether or not it's okay to leave you a message for safety purposes. We don't want to leave anybody messages who might share a phone with their abuser, or their abuser might have access to their phone. The Women's Center offers support to victims with an array of programs, such as child adolescent trauma, individual crisis counseling, psychoeducational groups, prevention and education outreach, emergency short-term shelter, and more. And more being, we also respond to medical emergencies. So if somebody's been assaulted, we respond to the surrounding South Coast hospitals 24 hours a day. One of our advocates goes out and is able to support and advocate for the victim of the abuse. Our child adolescent trauma program is licensed clinicians who are working with our children and are able to support them all the way around. They are giving them a diagnosis, treatment, assessment, and like I said, licensed clinicians who are able to work with these children ages 6 to 18. Individual crisis counseling for the adults. So they're working with a counselor who has been trained and educated in specific domestic violence and sexual assault. This can look like anywhere from, they want 4 sessions, 6 sessions, 12 sessions, however many they want or feel comfortable with. It's entirely client-based and what they want. If they want to learn more about domestic violence, if they want to learn how to combat a narcissist, if they want to learn what the symptoms of domestic violence are, what can I start to see? If they want to learn more about red flags and boundaries like we discussed today, that's all options with those individual counseling sessions. Our psychoeducational groups are for individuals who might want to learn more as well, but in a group setting. A lot of the times, individuals hear group and they just came out of this traumatic experience. They're not really willing to share. It's not a sharing group. We do offer some now that you're able to come in and share your experience and discuss what happened to you with other people who have had similar situations as yourself. However, most of the groups are facilitated to be psychoeducational. So again, you're learning more about empowering yourself, domestic violence, healthy relationships, how to move forward, and how to avoid getting yourself into those situations long term. Prevention and education and outreach. So that would be myself, and I'm able to go out and provide training such as this one, maybe just a light overview of domestic violence and sexual assault. Maybe some organizations are just interested to learn more about our programs. So I can also offer an overview of the Women's Center and more detailed information about each of these individual programs that we offer. And again, I mentioned our shelters, so that emergency short-term shelter. Our catchment area is Acushnet, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, Fall River, Freetown, Marion, Mattapoisett, New Bedford, Fall River. I said Fall River, I'm sorry, Rochester, Somerset, Swansea, Wareham, and Westport. If anybody has any further information or has any questions or wants to set something up, this is my information and I will leave that up for you. And if we want to start taking questions, we can now.
Thank you, Kayla, for this really comprehensive overview of DV, the sort of signs as well as the effects, and sort of where they can reach out for help. We do have some time for questions. I see one already, but please feel free to drop any others in the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom. So the one that's in there now is there any place like the Women's Center in the Lowell area? And the answer is yes. I'm going to sort of give two parts to that, two answers to that question. And then if you know anything as well, Kayla, feel free to jump in. But I know the Center for Hope and Healing is a DV sexual assault agency in Lowell, and you can also use MOVA's Ask MOVA site to search any area. So whether it's Lowell, whether it's anywhere else in the state, Brenna just dropped the Ask MOVA site link in the chat, and in there, if you click on domestic violence, and then that will bring you to an option to search on a map, as well as find county specific lists. Do you have anything else to add there?
I was also going to offer up the Center of Hope and Healing for Hope and Healing. Other than that, I do want to add, I forgot to mention, or maybe I did mention, but I would like to reiterate at the very least, all of our services that I did briefly just discuss are completely confidential and free. So no need that we're not insurance based even. You could come to us without insurance, and we also work with undocumented population as well.
All right, well, I'll start wrapping up, but if anyone does have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the last few minutes. But just want to thank Kayla again. I think Brenna's going to drop another set of resources in the chat as well, and that will include a survey link for today's session, as well as some more links on MOVA's website. I'll also include all of those as well as the Ask MOVA site in a follow-up email to you all. In that follow-up email, I'll also include the PDF of the slides from today, which Kayla has been gracious enough to allow us to share with you all, and a recording of today's session so you can reference any of the information again. And with that, I'm still not seeing any other questions, but really appreciate you all taking the time to join us this morning. Thank you, Kayla, for taking the time to share your expertise. Oh, someone's just saying thank you in the Q&A. So I hope you all can enjoy, I think, our last taste of some warm weather for this year today and this weekend. And hope you all have a great rest of the day and weekend. Thank you, Kayla, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, everyone.